Hey, good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Okay, great. So, I think we can get started. Thanks for all those who have been on time and before the time. So, thanks to everyone who have joined. So glad to connect each one of you. We are very delighted to have the Magento maniacs across the globe on the session on Magento PWA Studio. To give you a brief about myself, I am Anushri, heading marketing and communication at Codilar. Codilar Technologies is an Adobe award-winning agency where we are specialized in delivering high-performing Magento website and PWAs. We are based in India. So, as I know, everyone is here today to get hands-on with Magento PWA Studio. So, to give you an overview of what we will cover in the session, initial 15 minutes, we will be covering on what's the current status of the front-end development, then explaining what is PWA, and also how do we make e-commerce PWA store. Then next session will be we will be moving on to hands-on with PWA Studio, in which we will cover setup and installation overview, taking you through the project folder structure of the application we are going to build. And also we will do few customization on React component to show how we can do that in PWA Studio. Today for this, I have Mr. Navneet Vijay, who is our front-end ninja and technical lead at Codilar, to take you through the session. And during the session, if you have any queries, you can drop over the chat. We have allocated last 15 minutes for this discussion. We can have a discussion and we can clear it out. And also we appreciate if you can share your feedback at the final, at the last, in the feedback form we share. So I know you all are excited. We hope this session to be an insightful session, and let's get started. Over to you, Navneet.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining the webinar. So my name is Navneet, and today we are going to see more and see and understand about the PW or the PW Studio that is available in Magento, and in general what is a PW itself. Okay. So in this session, I would like to point out the overview of what we are going to see. Okay, so we will understand what is PWA, and we will also see how do we build an e-commerce website with the PWA features. And we will also understand what is the PW Studio or Magento PW Studio, and a little bit of development with the PW Studio to get you started with building an e-commerce website. Okay. And a little bit about me. So I'm a technical lead at Codilar Technologies. Okay, and I've been working with Magento and React.js for almost 4+ years. Okay, and I would like to learn new stuff and also explain that to people. And when you say a JavaScript, you have my complete attention. And okay, let me check with the audio. Audio clear or anyone else facing the issue? Okay, I see some are telling that it's not clear. So okay, yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. So you have my complete attention whenever you say something about JavaScript. Okay, and that is about me in general. And yeah. So before we go ahead, I would like to talk about the current state of front-end development in the community. So with every now and then, we might be coming up with new framework or new libraries in the community, and you will be hearing a lot of buzz about it and it's very difficult to catch up with these frameworks. So maybe you're learning Vue or Svelte or even React, some any small library today, and maybe within a week or 2 weeks there's a new framework available in the JavaScript community. Okay. So with this said, with all the latest development and new technologies and contents that is being available, so what is the thing that is more useful for us? Okay, as a Magento developer and as an e-commerce developer, so what are the things that we can take up from this and utilize to make our developer experience as well as the e-commerce experience much better? Okay, so the solution for this is a PW, okay, a progressive web application. So we take the best applications, best features that are available on the community, and we have something called a PWA. Okay, we build something, a web application in terms of uh, making the website much faster and much reliable. Okay, so let's understand what is PWA. So it is a web application built using modern technologies and design patterns. So it is, in general, it's a normal website, but with more of what do you say, advanced features. Okay. So the website that is built using these technologies are much reliable and faster, and it also works offline, and it is more secure, and it is responsive, and this runs in all the browsers and all the operating system, and maybe like some issues with iOS device. Okay, apart from that, it has complete support on running on any of the operating systems. Yeah. So now that we have some basic idea about what is a PWA and how it looks and how it performs as a whole, so let's try to understand what are the things that are basically required for making your website or turn your website into a progressive web application. Okay. So I think these are the three main things. Okay. First is you need to have an SSL certified domain so that it's secure. Whenever the data is passed from the client to the server, the data will be secure. And the next thing is a service worker. So service worker is a more like a client-side proxy. So that stays on your browser and it will intercept all the requests that is being sent from the server to the client or from the browser to the server. And based on the data that you're requesting, it will understand whether you should actually make a new request or the request was already been sent and you don't have to send a request to the server. Okay. Along with this, there are a lot of the strategy. Okay. So we cache the request that we get from the data that we get from the server, and you can implement in multiple ways. Okay. And the next thing is web manifest. So this is a specific file for your application. So this contains all your application settings. Okay. So since we are talking about web application, so we are basically treating our website as an app that can actually add in your home screen or in app drawer. Okay. So once you are calling it as an app, so there are certain things that you expect to behave. Okay. So you have to see an icon in the once you add your website or application in your app drawer, you expect that have a logo or an icons. Okay. And also you expect what should be the color of the icons and what should be the loading screen. So you need to give more introduction or more information about the website. Okay. So to make it more natural and feels like it's a native app instead of just visiting a website. So all these things will be taken care by this specific file called the manifest file. Okay. So if these three things are available, and you can actually build a website which basically works offline on all those things. Yeah. So next question would be that now that we know what is a PWA and what is the how do we need to build a PWA website, even maybe a small website or like two or three links. Okay. And the next question would be like how are we going to use these best features that are already available to make it applicable in our e-commerce store. Okay. So for this we have a lot of tools are available, but the most and the popular one and uh, the one which is making a lot of buzz is a PWA Studio. This is from Adobe itself. So since it is from the Adobe team itself, so we are looking at a lot of good features and good updates and the community support from community support as well for the development of the PWA Studio. Okay, so this is a tool that we are going to use to build our progressive web application. Okay, so in general, yeah. So this is a small a graph diagram which will explain how the application would look like once you have integrated with your PWA Storefront. Okay, so unlike the traditional website where you are just having your front end or the storefront in the same location, so the website will render all the content from the server, the HTML and the CSS part, everything will be rendered from the server, and it will provide it to the browser, and this content will be rendered on the browser now. So once you're introducing something a PWA storefront, so we are separating the backend and the front end, and we are running our PWA storefront in a separate location, and we have our Magento in a separate location, so that these two are independent. So you can host your PWA storefront in any of the website. So you can use some hosting platforms as Vercel, or you can also use Netlify and to host your front end. So your backend remains same. So it will be in a different location and safe and secure. And the next thing is the communication. So the communication between the front end or the interaction that the customer does and the data that needs to be sent from the server will happen through the GraphQL. So GraphQL is also a latest technology. So apart from like before this, we used to have REST APIs. So REST APIs were used to communicate between the client and the server, but with the availability or the introduction of GraphQL, so the data that we need to fetch from the server is more easy. So this GraphQL is more of the developer friendly as well. So you can be very specific to the data that you're requesting. So unlike REST API, you don't have any options, okay, where you can specify I want just a particular data or just information of the customer name or date of birth. Okay, so this is how your website will look like. So you will be maintaining two different servers, and your storefront would be running on the PWA Studio, and your Magento will be either a community edition or enterprise edition. Okay, and the PWA Studio comes with a set of tools. Okay, so it comes with a set of tools and libraries which are useful for us to build. And like we discussed, the communication will happen through the GraphQL, and we also have the React.js, so which will be used in the PWA storefront. Okay, so we use React to render all the content that we are looking on the website. And it also comes with Tailwind CSS. I hope this also is a popular technologies with based on the usage that is how good it is with the developer experience as well. And we also use React hooks, and custom hooks are also available from PWA Studio, and we also have a support for CSS modules as well. Okay, so in general, it's a whole package that contains all the tools and the libraries that we require to build the e-commerce website. Okay, so you can see this is a sample developer architecture diagram. Okay, so like we discussed, we have our Magento server here, and the Magento will be providing us all the data that we require, maybe the CMS content, or maybe the logic that we require, or fetching the information of the products and categories, etc., all these things. And what happens is we get all the details and we build this information, okay, so that whatever high-level language that we have written to build our application will be converted into a plain simple JavaScript, so that our browser will be able to understand, and it will render the final component. Sorry, the final output that we see on the browser. So I would like to talk about the two main tools. Okay, one is called the Venia UI, and the other one is called Peregrine. Okay, so these two tools are the main understanding that we need to know about the PWA Studio. Okay, first is Venia UI. So this is basically a set of React components, so which contains all the HTML structure that you require to build your web application. Okay, so it's just the HTML structure or the UI part of your website will be available in this React components. So Magento PWA Studio comes with a set of UI components readily available for us to get started. So we don't have to actually build everything from the scratch. Okay, so we have a UI or the design system are readily available. So we can use this and we can build our structure. And the next thing is Peregrine. So Peregrine, basically, this also contains a set of React components, but the thing is, this only contains the logical part of your components. So if whether it's a state management or handling the communication from the GraphQL, so all these things will be handled from Peregrine. Okay, so these components will take care of this set of tasks. So in general, Venia UI is basically the appearance of your website. So these components, using these components, you can design your appearance of your website, and using the React components from Peregrine, you can actually design your functionality or the usability of your website through this. Okay. And it also has a lot of other tools like Page Builder, and it also has the Apollo GraphQL client and Webpack, and a lot of the other modern front-end technologies that are required. Okay. So I think with that said, we can actually get into the PWA Studio, so that we will have understanding about the setup and installation, and also an overview of the folder structure. Okay, and we will also see how we can override and extend some already available components from Venia and Peregrine library. Okay, and also we can look into how we can integrate with our custom Magento backend. Okay. So before that, there are few prerequisites that I would like to share. So if you're building this, so I expect that, I mean, you should be good in JavaScript. Okay, a good understanding of JavaScript is compulsory, and then you should also have an understanding of the functional based React.js, and also the hook concepts. Okay, and some understanding of Webpack, how it works and what is that used for. Okay, and along with that, two more things. One is Magento, and the other thing you have to know is the GraphQL. So what are queries and what are mutations, and how do we write a GraphQL query to get the data or the mutations. Okay. Yeah. So let's start. Let's start the now. Yeah. The first thing is let's look at the installation process. The installation process is Installation process is actually very simple. So Adobe has given us a CLI command where we can directly scaffold our project, okay, with the one line of command. So you can create a directory where you want to install your storefront and run this command. And once this command is running, and you'll be given with certain questions. So the basic questions where you will be specifying what is the name of your storefront and what is the backend URL. Okay, whether you want to use a custom backend URL or you want to use the sample data that is already available in a remote location. Okay, and the installation process will take time. Okay, maybe like 4 to 5 minutes, or maybe depending on your internet speed, it might take 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, and next step is important. Okay, so the next step is important. So once your installation is done, so you need to navigate to your application where you've installed. Okay, and you have to create your custom origin. So okay, so in the beginning of the presentation, we were talking about how PWAs are secure, right? So the PWAs will only work on an SSL certified domain. So you should have your HTTPS available. Only then the service worker and all the PWA features will be mostly used. Okay, so it also gives us an option. Okay, so PWA Studio has a command where it will create for us a custom domain, and it will point to our localhost, and with a self-certified SSL certificate will be provided to us, so that it will work in a HTTPS location. Okay, and the next thing to start a development server, we have a simple command called yarn watch. So you can either use yarn or you can also use npm, so whichever is comfortable for you. And using this, we start our development server, and where we can modify the files that we want, and that would be reflecting in a real time on the browser. Okay. So I have my the project setup. So I have followed the steps that is available. So we have to create our folder and run the application and set up our custom origin and other things that are required. I've done all these things, and this is the folder structure. Okay, I have the project name is called PWA Studio, and these are all the files that will be available for us. And we also have some more. So we also have one more folder here. You can see this is called at Magento. So this is basically from the node modules. So once you visit the node modules, you will have one folder called extension name with Magento, and this will contain all this details. So this is only for the purpose of understanding. So instead of visiting the node modules, I am directly visiting from the root directory here. Okay. Yeah. So you can see we have certain folders, like we have the source folder, and we have our package.json file, and we have the post CSS, prettier. On these are all pretty standard configurations files that we normally see even in a React JS project or a Vue.js or any other front-end related projects. Okay, and we can also see here the Tailwind config file is also available, and any configuration or any modification that you require to make for Tailwind CSS can also be done here. Okay, and out of all this file, let's start with package.json file. So we look into it, what are the contents that are available. Yeah. So pretty straightforward, this information about the project and some details. So whatever information that we have given during our installation will be available here. And we do have a certain set of scripts which are available. So we can actually use these scripts to build our application for the production. Okay, and we also have some linting and code checking commands which are also available, and also commands to run our development server. Okay, and rest of it are all dependencies. So that's it. And we can check the node and yarn version, which is minimum required. Okay, so that your application will run. So once we look into the source folder, we have a few components. So I already have certain folders and files created, but especially it comes with just the index drivers, and we also have a CSS file and some service worker and stores, a Redux store, and that's it pretty much. These are the files, because the majority of the files or the logic will be coming from our node modules. Okay, so we are getting it ready-made, all the components and the logic for us. Okay, we don't have to actually write each and every logic from the beginning. Okay, so it gives us a head start, and it also comes with the storybook. So this is also one of our popular tool for checking or the prototyping of your components and doing a better documentation of all the items which are available or the components which you have created. Okay. Yeah. So as per as documentation, we will start our development server. We'll see how it works. Okay, and before that, I would also like to show one more file. So this is the environment file, .env file. Okay, so it comes with a lot of environment variables. Okay, you can specify the backend URL here. So in case you forgot to mention what is your backend URL, or you want to change the Magento installation. Okay, so after the Magento installation, you can if you want to change your Magento instance, so you can do from here. You can change the variable here, and this will be used. Okay, and you can also specify the edition and store view code and a few other values. Okay, or if you want to introduce any custom environment variables, okay, which you want to use it during the build process, you can also do this. Okay. So now let me get started. Okay, I think I already have. So I'll run the command yarn watch. Yeah. So you can see it is mentioning a URL here. So the URL also comes with an HTTPS location. Okay, the URL contains HTTPS, so where the SSL certificate is self-signed. Okay. Yeah, let's wait for the installation process. So we are provided with two URLs. So one is our development server or our storefront URL where the website will be running, and the other one is a GraphQL playground. So we'll take a look at both of this. Yeah. So you can see this is what we get. So without any of the customization, we are able to see the home page and the menu, mega menu, and also the search. And we also have the customer create and login. Okay, So all these things, all the components will be available out of the box. So we don't have to manually see it. Sorry, manually develop and do it. Okay. And I do have some issue with my system, but you can see the product listing page, which is available here, and also the filters are available. Okay, the product filters are available, and yeah, and this is a output, or this is how the product page looks once you are building your e-commerce website with PWA Studio. So we have all the options, or also some custom options are also supported here. Okay. And we do have a few more content. We have the product description, and we have the SKU details, and we have the footer, which is readily available. Okay. And we'll see some usage of it. Okay. So add to cart, and we will also see the cart page, how it looks. Okay. Yeah. So cart page, and the rest of it is pretty standard. So you can consider this as a Luma theme. Okay. So when it comes to Magento, we have a default Luma. Okay, Luma theme or a blank theme. So you can consider this as one of that. Okay, so I would say this would be very similar to Luma theme. So Magento is providing us a lot of readily available components and functionalities. So we can either we can modify that, or we can extend that and add our custom logic, or modify the components that is required. Okay, so I do have one more URL. So where this is the demo website, demo URL for the Venia theme. Okay. So you can see the home page, and we also have the product listing page. So you can say it's very similar in the UI wise. Whatever we have in our local machine and the demo website is very similar, except for the CMS pages that they have custom designed. And it also supports multiple website and multiple store views as well. And also it supports multi-currency as well. Okay. So depending on your requirement, you can also make use of multi-website and multi-store views and build your website. Yeah. So I hope this was yeah. So this is what it looks okay as a PWA Studio. And next thing is we'll have a small exercise. Okay, a small exercise on understanding how we have to identify the components and how we have to modify or extend the components. Okay. So now that whatever we have received here might not be enough. Okay, so the Luma theme is always not enough. So we need to add more. So we need our custom requirements and our custom, the custom logic or custom features from the requirement from the customer requirements. Okay. So I will take the product page an example to understand what is happening and how to debug and how to add or extend. Okay. So first thing you need is an extension called React Components. Okay, so this extension is required, or not actually required, but it is useful for us to debug what are the components and what are the data that we are passing to the components as props. Okay, so let's see the components which are available. Okay, so you can see there is a long list of components. Okay, starting from the adapter, Apollo provider, so the main root components. Okay, and a lot of components are available. Okay, so first is what are we going to do in this exercise or extending as part of extending or overriding the components. Okay, so I would like to show two things. Okay, one is we will be showing a custom CMS block. Okay, we'll be showing a CMS block after this particular section. Okay, I would like to show a CMS block here, and the next thing is I would also want to show the short description of the product somewhere here. Okay, so maybe in the PDP, like we have the product description is there, but I want to show the short description of the product as well. Okay, okay. So let's get started with these two things. So first is let's try to understand, or let's figure out how the product page is rendered in the first place. Okay, before we start making any customization, we need to understand how this component is rendered or the page is rendered. Okay. So in the component section, I am able to find out the main component. Okay, so once I hover on this, I can see it highlights what are the components or what it takes. Okay, so I don't think so we need route. We need to check the route component. Okay, so yeah, so this is a component. I think, yeah, I hope you're able to see the component name. So the component name is called product full detail. Okay, so this component is responsible for whatever we are seeing here. Okay, so whatever we are seeing here is completely responsible for this. Okay, so let's understand how it is like how it's affecting or how it is rendering the product details. Okay, so now that we know what is the component that we need to look into it, okay, the next thing what I will be doing is I'll be searching for this component. Okay, so since it's UI, like we discussed, the UI part will be available in this particular package called Venia UI. Okay, so I go to Venia UI and library components. Okay, so here are the list of components which are available. Okay, so our component is called product details. Okay, so this is a component and it has certain files. So it has the CSS file that is required for the product page and the main file, and also the GraphQL file you can see from the extension GQL. So this is the GraphQL file and also the main index file. Okay, so since this is the component, okay, so I can see all the logic and UI part is already available here. Okay, so maybe the messages that we require and also the available product availability and all the details. Okay, so you can see, yeah, we have something called the product name. Okay, so we were able to identify where the product name is rendering. So it is rendering here. So we have the product details is giving us the details, some information, and from there we are getting the name, and we're also getting the product price value, and here you can see we have the product gallery is rendered here. Okay, and some more content like the quantity or rest of it. So now that we were able to know which component is responsible for rendering this product page. Okay, so next thing what we have to understand is how the data is coming for this component. Okay, so since it is a product page, okay, so this would be a common component which will be reused by all the products. Okay, so the product page we were able to see from here. Okay, so we were able to see the details, right? Yeah, so product details. So we are fetching the product name and price and everything from this particular object. So this object is basically coming from another object called talent props. So here the product details are being fetched from a hook. So since it is starting from use, so we have a custom hook, use product full detail as a hook. So from this hook, we are getting all this information. Okay, the processing of this or the manipulation or understanding, and basically the what are information or the methods which you require will be coming from this particular hook. So we are segregating, we are abstracting the logic from the UI part. So we are not doing all this in a same file. Okay, so now that we know the details of this product is coming from a particular hook called use product details, so we can look into it from where it is coming. Okay, so we can see the product use full detail. So this particular hook is coming from the package called Peregrine. So like we had already understood where to look into it. So the Peregrine will contain all the logical part of the components which is required. Okay, let's have a look at it. Okay, we'll see what are the things that is actually available there. Okay, so this is the file, and you can see a lot of details are available, like whether if you want to check if the product is in stock, we have a specific function here, and getting the media galleries and product, all the things, whatever we are defining here is coming from this here. Okay, all we need to do is we need to pass the product. We pass the product and we get these breadcrumbs. We get whether it's in stock, whether its product is able to add to cart. So the logic will be taken care from there. Okay, but it still doesn't answer our question. How are we getting the product details? Okay, so we are passing the product information to this hook to get this all the information. But the actual question is, where is the value of the product? Okay, so to look into that, we have to understand the routing structure in PWA Studio. Okay, so it comes with a few common routing components. Okay, so mainly we have here. Okay, so instead of components in Venia UI, so we have to look into a folder called root components. Okay, so under root components, we have set of common components. So we have a common category page, we have a CMS page and product page and search page. So these are the main routes that any of the URLs that we visit on the website mainly falls under these four. Okay. So next is let's look into the product. Okay. So here, I hope, yeah. So here we are calling the component. Okay. So the component which we earlier discussed, okay, which is responsible for rendering the product is being called here, and let's see how the data is being passed here. Okay. Yeah. So this is our, to be precise, this will be our product page. So in that product page, we are having some meta details which is required for the SEO purposes are added, and we are calling our special component, which is mainly used for handling or rendering the product details page. Okay. So we have our component here and we have our product here, but where is the product coming from? Yeah. So it's coming from another hook, which is called use product. So this use product is a common hook, okay, where you pass the product details which you want to fetch the information, and this is again coming from the Peregrine library. Okay. So this is the main hook. So this is the file that is fetching the product details and passing that to our product detail component, and the rest of the logic is handled here. Okay. So the abstraction is pretty clear. So we get the information that is required from the server in a hook or in the Peregrine tools. Okay, in those React components, we'll only take care of fetching the information or modifying the information that we have received. Okay, and it will make sure that the UI is completely separate. Okay, so we are abstracting the UI and the functionality separate. Okay, yeah. So we'll go back to this again. So this is the main hook where the product GraphQL is being called, and we are fetching the product details. Okay, and next thing what we have to understand is the query. Okay, how we are fetching the product details. So we have a hook. I think so. These are all the things are pretty common or the standard way to define the hooks from React. Okay, and the next thing what you also have to understand is a specific hook from Apollo. Okay, so Apollo is a GraphQL client which we are using it to fetch or do the queries or mutation. Okay, so use query. Yeah. So use query will return actually three variables. So it will return you. Yeah. So it will return you the error. It will return you the loading status of the query, and it will return the data that is coming from the request. Okay. So these are the three things. Yeah. And we have a separate file where we maintain our the GraphQL request. Okay. So this is our GraphQL for fetching the product page, and this is where all the information is coming. Okay. So that's an maybe a long overview, but you should be able to understand from where the data is coming and how it's internally working. Okay. So the data fetching happens in a separate location, and we pass the data to our UI component, and that UI component will be using this data which we receive to modify or render the product page. Okay. So coming back to our customization part, where we decided that we will be showing a specific CMS block in the product page. Okay. So now that we have some understanding about the product component which is used to render and how the information is coming. Okay. So next, let's start modifying it. Okay, so we know what is the file or what is the component that is required or what is the component that we need to modify. Okay, so for modifying or to extend or override the components, right, the core components. So PWA Studio has provided us a file called a concept of interceptors. Okay, so during the build time, when all the components are captured or all the components are loaded and it is built, and it will finally make sure it is production ready. Okay, so at this time during the build process, so we will be given with certain APIs so that we can modify or we can customize how we build our application. Okay, so for example, we just saw this component. Okay, but I want to add some additional details that I want to add. Okay, or make some changes. So basically what you're doing is, I don't want to use this file to make the final website. Instead of this, I want to use a different file. Okay, so we can do that using interceptors. And along with this, there is another option where you don't actually want to replace the entire content of this file, or you don't want to replace the file itself. but maybe you want to add some custom information. Okay, maybe you want to add one button here. Okay, just one line of button or one line where you want to introduce a new component in the product page. Okay, so that also is possible. Okay, so we can do two ways. One is completely we can override, okay, whatever file that you don't want from the default theme, you can replace it, or otherwise you can modify or introduce a new components in the existing components. Okay, so all this will happen through a file called interceptors. Okay, so if we look into our package.json file, okay, so at the last, or maybe this particular node, okay, so we have PWA Studio and targets and interceptors. Okay, so here you will be specifying the file, okay, the file which you will be using to intercept the build process. Okay, during the Webpack building time, you will be intercepting this and you will be modifying this building process. Okay, so the file name is local intercept.json. So I have the file here. Okay, so this local intercept JSON is basically a function, so that will do some additional work during the build process and it will continue the rest of the building process. Okay, yeah. So here you can see we have we are requiring the build pack. Okay, we are requiring the build pack and this something called targetables. So these targetables are basically giving us an option, or it's exposing us to access the entire code base. Okay, so you can actually modify the file itself. Okay, so that level of customization or extendability is available here. So once we get hold of all the targetables which are available, okay, so let me show the final code how it looks. Yeah, so now that we have received, so we have so maybe this targetable will contain all the components or all the files that are available for the build process, and PWA Studio also gives us an API called React component. So in this list of all the items, so you can specify which React component you want to fetch. Okay, and once you do this, so this you will be able to get hold of this component. Okay, and you can once you are able to get the component during the build process, you can modify the file itself. Okay, so for example, I want to introduce a CMS block group. Okay, so already a component is available. Okay, so I want to watch this component. I want to add this component in this particular file. Okay, so I can do the import here. So in the same file, I can specify which component I want to import, and I have a component available. And the next thing is I want to introduce, or I want to add or specify where I want to add the new component. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So here you can see we have a few more APIs. So we have a React component. We also have an API called add import, where it will add an import to this particular file. Okay. So next thing is you're specifying where you want to introduce this new component. So this is the target. This is the target location, and this is the element that you want to introduce at the location. Okay. So you're basically inserting your custom component after this form. Okay. So I'll show you what is the output. Okay, what will be the output once this particular section is run. Okay, so manually what we are doing is we are identifying the component. So that we are doing. So we already know this is a component. And the next thing what we're doing is we are importing a custom component. Okay, so this is the component. So we basically do this. We do the import here. Yeah, so we do the import, and the next thing what we're doing is we are specifying where to call the custom component. So here we are specifying the React element called form. Okay, so we are adding this after this element. So let's see where the form element is available in our main component. Yeah, so we have a form here, and that form, yeah, form basically ends here. So we are introducing this component after this section. Okay. So this is how the final file, okay, how the final file will look once we run this 3 lines of code. Okay, once we do this section of processing, so this is how our final file looks like. Okay, during the build process. So we are actually not replacing the file, or we are not doing anything. So we're basically telling what are the changes that I want to do in the core file. So I want to import this and I want to add it here. Yeah, I want to add it here. So instead of doing a lot of work on overriding or copying the contents from the core file and adding our custom details, so we can do that in 3 lines of code. Okay, I'll just undo. Yeah. So with these 3 lines of code, I can select the file which I want to do, which I want to modify. I'll import the component and I will specify the location where I want to do it. Okay. So now this is done. We have to restart our development server, which we started earlier. Okay, so the reason why I need to restart is this is happening during the build process. Okay, so once we start the development, that the building process is already done, so we have to restart the building process. So at this time, once this code is run, okay, we should be able to see a specific CMS block with this as an identifier. Okay, and that will be basically shown after the form element. So this form, I think we already had seen earlier. Yeah, so here. So this is the form. So form element which takes up all this space, and we are introducing a new component after that element. So let's see how it looks. Yeah. So here you can see we have a CMS block. So this is the CMS block with the identifier that we have specified, and it is visible in the location that we have specified. So what the location where we have specified is after the form element. Okay. So with little bit of inspection from the browser as well as the core component, we will be able to identify where we need to place it. So this is a form component, and we are introducing the CMS block right after the form. Okay. Yeah. So I hope that was clear. So this is how we introduce a new component in the existing components. But the thing is, this might be simple because we are not doing any other things. So it was just a plain reusable component from the core library. So similarly, you might be having a lot of libraries already available from the Venia UI, so that you can reuse it instead of creating from scratch. Okay. So this is one example where we are modifying it, and the other one I want to show is with an example with modifying the UI as well as making the API request and fetching the data from the Magento and displaying that details. Okay. So for that, I have another example that I would like to show is display the description, short description of the product in this section. Okay. So we follow the same way. So since we know where we need to add, so this is a component that I need to modify. Okay. Yeah. So this is a component that I need to modify. So instead of adding already existing component, okay, I have to introduce a custom component. Okay. So this is my custom component. So I'm adding an import, okay, called product short description, and from this location. So you can see at theme is alias. Okay, I have defined specifically in the Webpack. Yeah. So Webpack contains the alias name. So whenever I'm using at theme, it will be resolved as the source location. Okay. Yeah. So I have a component here. So let's see the component. Okay, and this is a component. I'm also passing some details or some props to the component as well. Okay, same way, the location you can specify and where to insert this custom component. So that can be specified in the same way. Okay, and let's have a quick look at the product short description components. So the product is in this particular section. So basically it contains 3 files. So one will be the main component file, and also if you are using any GraphQL or the GraphQL query will be available here. Okay, so we have our component here. So this component will again will be using a custom hook. So this hook will be coming from our different location. So this hook will take care of making the request to the using GraphQL, whatever we pass. So we are here again passing the GraphQL document, the query object, and using this, it will make the request and it will give us the details. Okay, it will give the response of it. So talon props is the output that we are getting, and from here we will be able to know what is if we have any error in the GraphQL request, we will be able to identify, and we will also give a Boolean value if if the request is still in pending, and it will give the final data what we require. Okay, and so this is all basic error handling here, and you can see I am passing the short description, whatever I get once I call this hook into another component called rich text. Okay, so this will render all the HTML and other contents. Okay, and what we are passing is the URL key, and the next thing is we are passing the GraphQL query. So here you can see this is the query that I need to fetch. Okay, so the query I'm passing, and basically you will be getting a variable called URL key. So that we are again passing here. Okay, and let's have a understanding, or let's look into the logical part. Okay, how once we pass the query and once we're passing the URL key, how the data is being fetched. Yeah, so the data is being fetched using the Apollo's use query. So this is a standard hook available. So we make the request, we get all the details that is required, and we modify whatever it is required for us, how we want to show the data, or how you want to provide the data from your after fetching the request, how you want to pass the data to your component can be defined here. Okay, yeah. So in this I am getting the product, and from the product I am basically just returning the short description. Okay, so here you can see the data, short description, error, and loading will be returned, and I am destructuring only these three values. Okay, so by this I should be also able to see the product description, which is displayed after section class titles. So you can also find where this HTML is from our root file. Okay, so that would be somewhere here. Yeah, so this is the section. So we are introducing our custom component after this particular line of HTML code. So that is what we're specifying here. We're introducing our new component. So by this, sorry, not here, after this component. Okay, so now that we have made some changes, we have to restart the server again. Yeah. So since we are intercepting, or we are modifying the process right during the build process, so we have to restart the server to see the changes. Okay, so otherwise, if for example, so now that my component is already available, so short description is the component that I've custom created, and it is already added in the product details page. So if you are making any changes, or if you're introducing any component, or if you're adding any new tag, you don't have to restart it, because the restarting of the development server is only required if you are making any the changes that is required for rebuilding. Okay, so this will only recompile it. Okay, it doesn't have to stop the server and start it again. Okay, yeah, so now that server is there, and yeah, so you can see it's hot reloaded again. So this is the short description that I've added for this product, and it is being displayed here. Okay, so to answer your question, if we are introducing any additional content here, we do not have to restart the component. Okay, so it will directly be shown here. Okay. So we can see that we don't have to refresh the website, or we don't have to restart the website. So whatever changes that we make on the component will be directly available here. Okay. Yeah. So these are the two common things that we would be doing it, like not only on the PWA Studio, or in general if you are working on any frameworks. So now that we know how to add a new component in the existing components, and also to fetch the data and show the details, okay, we show the details from the GraphQL instead of using the existing one. So I hope this will be more of a head start for you guys to understand or do the customization and build your own PWA Studio based e-commerce website. Okay, so I would like to show the last thing. Okay, so now it's an add-on. Okay, so I have a Webpack plugin. Okay, so we created a Webpack plugin. So this will help you in overriding a file. Okay, so till now what we saw is we were customizing, or we were extending the existing file which is available from the core core module. So we were extending that, adding our additional details or adding our custom information. But sometimes you might feel like you want to modify some details. Okay, so you want to modify, or you want to remove or you want to completely override what is available in Venia Studio. Okay, so you want to rebuild from scratch. So for that, we also have a Webpack plugin. So where so this is a standard content. So I will not be explaining it. So what the thing is, this is the Webpack plugin that you will be creating, and we have a separate file called component override mapping. So in this file, okay, so in this file you will be specifying what is the file that you want to replace. Okay, so during the process of building, instead of using the file called product detail fragment from this location, I am specifying, or I'm informing the Webpack to take the file which is in this location. Okay, so I don't have to use this file. Instead of that, I'll be using this file. Okay, so you specify similarly like this. So it takes an array of it takes an object. So you can specify as number of files that you want to override instead of extending the functionality or extending the UI logic. Okay, so once you have introduced this Webpack plugin, so the same thing what we did in the local.intercept file. So you have to import this file, and you are creating a new Webpack plugin that will override whatever files that you have specified in this location. So you can completely override what data that we want. Okay, so as an example, I would just show this details. Yeah, so this is the file, and I want to override, and this is the location where the file is. Okay, so it's in root components, product, and product detail fragments. So I am modifying the GraphQL, which I want GraphQL. Okay, so I have introduced a few more details. Okay, so if you look at the core file, it doesn't have maximum price or minimal price. Okay, so I have introduced these two in the custom component, or the custom component which I want to override. And once that is done, if you look at the network request.
Navneet?
Yeah.
Yeah, time is running out, I think. So
Yeah, I'm done with this. Yeah. So you can see the response.
We need to have the Q&A as well, right?
Yeah.
So just sorry to interfere.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So you can see now the query is updated as per our requirement. So we are no longer using the default query or default file. So instead of default file, we are using our custom defined file here. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you all. So that's it, and I will share the link of the repository which I have used here. So all the files and all the changes that we have discussed will be available here. You can look into it on the GitHub location. Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay. I'm audible? I think I'm audible enough, right?
Yeah.
So we can have the Q&A session, right? No?
Yeah, we can have.
Meanwhile, I will share here on the screen. You will be able to see the a feedback form. You can fill it meanwhile. Okay.
So I have a couple of questions here.
Yes. So you have a question. So I will read out the question. Okay, from last.
Okay.
Any installation documents? So
Yeah. So we
from
do have
Abhilash.
yeah. Yeah, hi, Abhilash. So installation documents are available. So in the documentation, all the clear details are available. So in case if you have any issues on during the installation process, I think you can look into GitHub issues. Okay, where you can resolve the issues what you have what you're facing. Okay, one such the details will be available. So I hope you can take the repository which I share as an example, and you can look into it.
Okay. Next is from do Vena theme support all Magento product type? From Ranjit.
Yeah. So Venia supports simple product, configurable products, and it has a partial support of virtual project as well. But the support for grouped and bundle are still in progress. Okay, it is in progress. So you can only get simple products, configurable products, gift cards, and a partial support of virtual products.
And I think Kailash, your query regarding every single change, do we need to rerun server? I think it's clear. You mentioned, got it, thanks. So
Yeah.
thank you for your query. Then how to connect with Magento admin server from Umesh.
Yeah. So, like we discussed earlier, we have a .env file in the project where you can specify what will be the backend URL for your application. So there will be one .env file. So in that env file, you can specify the variable, and you can change the Magento instance.
So, and Kailash, I think you had a discussion with Joy. So, and are you sure PWA Studio PWA supports multi-website feature from Namrata?
Yeah, it does support. It does support multiple websites. Okay.
Okay. Then I think few questions from Kailash has been answered by Joy. So meanwhile, so Aditi, how does this work for customized website?
Okay. Can you be some more specific? Who was that customized?
Uh, Aditi, could you please explain your question down? So, any practical example of manifest file that
Yeah. Yeah, I think manifest file,
yeah.
it's a JSON file. Okay, so in the JSON file, you can specify what are the contents that is required. Okay, so if you, yeah, you can look into some of the document. Okay, so if you look into Mozilla's documentation, right, so it will give you all the options which are available, which you can add it in the manifest.json file. Okay.
Kailash has also asked, right, in the root component, we saw CMS page, product components. What about checkout, customer dashboard components?
Yeah, so these are specific URLs, right? So when it comes to CMS page and when it comes to product page and category page, you can't define a specific route. Okay, so the product URL keeps on changing. So if your catalog has 1,000, you cannot define separate 1,000 URLs. Okay, so checkout and cart are standard URLs, so that will be defined in a specific location. So it will not be generic component. So these are all specific components. Okay. So
Okay.
there is no need for keeping it in generic so that it supports all the URLs. Okay.
Okay, I think we have answered you, Kailash. Umesh, how to connect live server?
You have to specify your backend URL. Okay. So in the .env file, I think that we have covered.
Okay, and I think we have answered Namrata's question. Are you sure PWA support multi-website
So
feature? We have
yes,
already answered.
we are supported. And if you are integrating any third-party extension, I think this question is from Kaimis Luhana. So if you are integrating any third-party extension, usually whatever extension that you build, or sorry, if you are purchasing any extension, so the extension would support for PWA Studio as well. So you don't have to do any customization from scratch. So in case any third-party extension doesn't support PWA Studio, then you have to you have to do the implementation by yourself. Okay. So you can create your GraphQL. So if the module is providing GraphQL, then well and good. Otherwise, you have to build your GraphQL and you have to build your front-end customization. So I think most of the extension would already support PWA itself. Okay.
Okay. I think Namrata, you are clear. So Ramesh is asking how to integrate payment gateway. Is any document available?
Yeah. So payment gateway is also in the same way. So we do have a few documentation and support from Magento community. Okay, how to implement this payment options. Okay. So regarding documentation, it is not a straightforward documentation is not available. So you would have to research on the code and develop it. Okay. So it's the documentation part would be still in progress.
Namrata mentioned you can't hear anything. Are we audible for you?
Okay,
Not
maybe
sure.
that was before.
Yes, yes. Okay. How we Kamlesh has asked how we can connect third-party extension, like any third-party module we have and need to update with GraphQL.
I think we already discussed this.
Is there any chance to break during Magento version upgrade? Sushil Desai.
Yeah, you have to follow up the release notes. Okay, so whenever a new update or is being released either on Magento or either on PWA Studio, so there might be some changes that you might require. Okay, to make it compatible. Otherwise, you will be getting some errors during upgrade itself. Okay, so you have to follow up on the release notes. So it will not be an easy, but sometimes if there are any major groundbreaking changes, then we have to look into this. Okay. Otherwise, for minor issues, minor upgrades, there won't be any problem.
Monali is asking, can I get document for backend configuration with PWA?
Yeah. For backend configuration, meaning we have not done any customization for Magento. So we have just specified the URL. Okay. So rest of it is everything is taken care from the PWA Studio itself. So I don't think so. I have any configuration specific to the backend.
Okay. So Jimain Patel, how we can install language pack on PW?
Language packs. Okay, I'm not sure, but as far as for the React, right? So we do have a Node module uh, that is available, so that will do the translation. Okay.
Umesh, I have changed Magento URL in env file, but not connect with Magento.
I think you have to check check the configuration. Okay, but we have one more question saying some modules do not provide GraphQL query. Okay, so like Algolia, but they provide React JS. Okay, so the thing is, if you're using any integration, right? So maybe it is not a GraphQL. You can so with the use of Apollo client, you can also use REST APIs to fetch the data as well. Okay, so the GraphQL is mainly useful. Okay, when you're fetching it from Magento. Okay, so if it is from Algolia, you can use REST API and you can perform whatever customization that is required. Okay, so there is not compulsory that Algolia or any third-party team that they have to provide the GraphQL. Okay, if it is apart from Magento. Okay.
Any other example of sample PWA website link which you have developed?
Yeah, I think we can share some of our.
Yeah, we can share with the recording. We can share some of the website that we have developed. I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bipu Mishra, some module not provided provide GraphQL query just like Algolia search, but provide React JS. So is there any doc to integrate them?
Yeah, I think we discussed this. Okay, I think we are with the last questions there. So
Okay.
I will quickly answer them. So is Tailwind fully supported? So yeah, Tailwind CSS is supported. Okay, so you have all the complete customization which is required for you to modify or extend the Tailwind config. It's also available, and the just-in-time compiler which is recently released from Tailwind, that is also available. Okay, and yeah, let's go with the last question. And for a backend developer to start learning React JS and hooks, so do you suggest any documentation? So before we started, I had these were the prerequisites. So you have to understand, like have some good understanding of JavaScript, okay, and React and hooks. So there are a lot of tutorials available. So you can also refer the documentation from React and some YouTube tutorials from you can do it. Okay. But you can do that. So it doesn't. It's not like a backend developer cannot do it. So you can do that.
Okay, sure. So I think it's done, right?
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Thanks
Okay.
a lot, everyone who have joined. Thanks a lot from we will be sharing you the recording as well. We think as we planned, the session went insightful for each one of you. So let's keep connected. So that's it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for the
you. Thank
wonderful
you for
evening.
joining the session. Okay. I hope this will give you an head start. So, which whatever is required for you to start and building the PWA Studio would be uh, as a head start, I would say. So there are a lot of things along with what we discussed. So I hope you will be able to understand and able to build much better websites, okay, and faster websites. Okay. Thank you.